Hey, welcome everybody. I am the Reverend Wakil David Matthews. And in this weekly conversation with my dear friends here, we were thinking about the feeling of distrust, or the loss of trust in the people that, or in even the idea of what we think we should be as a country, as a culture. We have this veneer anyway of being the moral compass as freedom. We're sharing freedom throughout the world, sharing human rights, and even though that veneer has its faults, and we know that it's not always real, or often not real. Right now, it's particularly under attack, and we're particularly seeing it. The mudslide, I love that. The mudslide of all of those feelings that that we hold some kind of moral compass in the world. And in fact, we're doing the opposite. We're showing the world the worst face, the shadow face of our humanity, that we are actually doing the worst possible things. We're killing children. We're killing, we're ignoring our elders. We're ignoring our homeless. There's so many ways that we're seeing our culture kind of dissolve, or that veneer, or what we hope for our culture to be, dissolve. And so I thought we'd talk about that today, just about how that feels, the loss that we feel about that, and maybe some ideas around what we could do as in our own worlds to help recreate that, or help that be different. So what do you think, folks?
Woofed. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Well, I am the Reverend Mother Ana Luisa Hernandez, and I want to say that this is a very real death that we're encountering. It is a death of, you called it a veneer. It's an idea that was fostered in this country, hundreds of years, a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah.
And it's not real anymore. And we are sensing a death. We're in the labor moments of the end of something. We can't individually figure out how to manage this loss, but collectively we're going to have to grapple with this.
Yeah,
we're going to have to figure out what it means as a culture, as a society. I'm not even sure if it's a culture, but as a country. How do we face the rest of our brothers and sisters around the world to say, we still care about you. We're still a good and loving human.
Yeah.
Sam, what say you?
I say that I just got distracted by a car alarm outside my house.
I heard
it. So I'm gonna be real. I didn't pick up much of that because it was very loud and very close to my ear. Maybe I should just listen for a little while longer. I'm gonna say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me anyway, we've been talking about the veneer of morality and ethics that supposedly is part of the country we live in, and it's
the institution.
Yeah. And it's got, realistically, there's a lot of examples of how we've failed in that over the years, and continue to fail in that. But it's so in our face right now that we're seeing the kind of the shadow side of what we feel like is our ethical, moral values, right? So
actually, maybe it's not even the shadow side, Wakil. If you go all the way back to the origins, the folks who showed up here killed a lot of people to take this land, and then they shipped in a lot of other people to build the land for them.
Yeah,
it's literally like what they wanted. It is no different. I think the paradigm we thought we lived in is never the case, and we're now seeing it really is what it wants to be. It is not a shadow side. This is not the underbelly. It's it has taken off the mask.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
The foundation of this country and a lot of the culture that we live under is the shadow side of humanity. And I think at this point in time, there is a more there is a more complex piece of it. I think about it a lot around like Thanksgiving time, and the schizophrenic narratives that we tell, and stories and myths that we have as a country.
Yeah.
You know, the myth of multiculturalism that we learn as children around a holiday like Thanksgiving. That, you know, the settlers were struggling and they were starving, and so the very gracious indigenous population came in and offered knowledge of indigenous foodways and saved the settlers from starvation,
imminent death.
from imminent death. And everybody was so grateful and so happy that they sat down and had a meal together and happily ever after.
Right.
When the reality of that day and what that celebration was the settlers not liking that there was an indigenous population nearby, massacring them, stealing all their food, and having a party about that. That is a very schizophrenic identity and sense of self that we carry as Americans.
Yeah.
And so what's happening maybe is the acceleration, like you're saying, Wakil, of the erosion of the veneer of the illusion of what we aspire to as a multicultural nation. Those of us who have heart and soul and believe in those things, and the reality of the underpinnings that have built and maintained this country since day one.
Yeah.
And Western culture in many ways, as colonial states, as, you know, the process of Christianization and internalization of the violence and then reproduction of it and things like that.
Yeah, we see that, and I think part of the dissolving of all of that, or the dissolving of the veneer, is we're seeing people right now who are basically in power, or who are supposedly our government governing us, who are just blatantly ignoring any sense of morality, blatantly saying, you know, that we are the only right people and everybody else is wrong, and we can do whatever we want. We can wipe out people. We can murder children. We can murder. We can ignore the homeless. We can quit supporting the poor. We don't need to do any of that stuff, because the only people that really matter are the wealthy, rich white people, really, when it comes right down to it, and the men, the males. So
white supremacy is all that matters, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way things should be. And in many cases, I think most of the people who are governing right now, or not, and I shouldn't say everybody, but definitely the people who are making the most noise and causing the most trouble, are just basically saying, yeah, that's the way it always was, always should be. And those of us who don't feel that way are like, oh my God, you know, how can this even be happening? I mean, I feel that. I guess for me, I'm just over and over feeling like just despair, and like, oh my God, how can this possibly be happening? Why can't we make this stop? You know, what do we have to do to make this stop? And what can we do about it? And how can we repair the harm that's been done? It's a huge question.
It is a huge question, but let me just also throw this out. What if the idea that we've held as the components that makes us the United States dies, is gone? All those things that we thought we are, like the supporters of of the folks who are hungry and sick and elderly and all over the world. We've tried to help out. For years, we have tried to go out. It's a double-edged sword, because our help has always been kind of shady at best. But it's gone. In this country, like you said, you know, we have so many different issues with humanity, with our neighbors, essentially. And our country is saying, doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, stockholders and, you know, the supremacy of who we are at the top is who we need to take care of.
Yeah.
This country dies. It's dead. Like we don't have anything, like the rebuilding of something, the composting, it's going to take decades. So can we hold space for the death of an ideal that truly wasn't ever there, but now it's really gone away? Like, right? So how do we, as an individual and as a collective, recognize that we can't keep pretending that it's going to get better? It's dead.
Yeah.
And sometimes when somebody dies, we have to like do ritual. We have to get together with our community, and we have to grieve. And I think that we are in the labors right now of death. And it's going to be the end. I mean, I keep hearing from a lot of my older friends who are like, this is just another cycle. We're going to get fine. Wait for the midterms. I've been hearing that for 2 years. Wait for the midterms. Wait for the midterm. I know, right? Like, and I keep saying the same thing. Like, that is such a crock. That is, no, this is it. This is it, folks. We are in the end.
First thing is to accept that, right? Just as with someone when you're dying is the very first practice is to accept that you're dying, right?
Yeah.
And to be willing to be in that space of dying and not only be in it, but celebrate it and you know, appreciate what that offers. So what it offers in this case, when we're talking about culture, it offers a way or an opportunity to think about what would the ideal actually look like, you know, and how can we in our own little communities begin to build that? So, and what would that?
So,
what can we learn if we accept that? Yeah, that this is dead and dying, and probably has been dead and dying for a long time.
Right. So I, as a former homeschool mom, so we always talked about the cycle of life and what it requires, right? So we have to give it time. I mean, we always tell people, take your time grieving, take your time at the end. When I've been with some folks, I always encourage them, like, be with the body of your loved one for as long as you need to.
Yeah.
And it used to be 3 days. Well, it is historically in a lot of cultures 3 days, because at 3 days you start decomposing and you start smelling bad. And the people who have been in wake around the body are exhausted. But they have both intellectually and emotionally and physically understood that there has been a death. And now we can take the person and bury them, right? And be done. And then the grief cycle starts. You miss the person. You wish you had said. You start kind of reorganizing your life with the loss. And then, a spring comes through and there's new growth. And so, if we think about the death of the veneer of our country, right now, we might be in the throes of laboring a death. Right. And collectively, we need to ritualize it. And I don't want to talk about an ideal of what we're going to recreate. I want to talk about like the essence of what humanity, not even humanity, because that's like such human supremacy. How can we collectivize so that we can support our world as a whole moving forward, right? Yeah. So that's my 2 bits there.
No, I love that. That's really well put, as always.
Just thoughts.
I just started reading this book, so I can't fully give it like a through and through recommendation for everybody, but it's been in my library, and Ana Luisa told me yesterday that it's been in her library, for a while.
And it's but Wakil, I think, already read it, so he's the one that recommended it.
Hospicing modernity.
Yeah.
And really it is this question. It is looking at the ways, not just political parties, not just, ways of life or myths, just like the entire concept, the foundation of the world that we live in, is dying. and how to show up in that world and acknowledge and examine the ways that we're attached to it and are grieving the different pieces that we're leaving and losing. And I mean, the author, she's talking about flush toilets, and she's talking about like, you know, compostable, and what we have lost in this process, the gifts and the challenges in it. But one of the pieces that really stuck with me in the pieces that I've read so far is a saying, and I don't remember where she said it came from. Maybe it's Russian. No, it's Brazilian. It's a flood aphorism. You can't swim until the water is hip deep. And until then, you just got to wade through it. And so the water's rising.
I like that. Yeah. The water is rising.
And it's a slog. And you don't feel the motion, and it's sticky until the water hits a certain point. And it talks about, you know, also the level of crisis that we need before we feel the real breaking and can respond and band together, like what happened in Minneapolis. You know, like you can have, as I've said before, you can have block parties and you can get to know your neighbors, but you don't know how to respond until
shit hits
shit hits the fan at a certain level of crisis.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because this morning, my daughter, I should probably not say her name, but she's, you know, I have been like a cognitive prepper my whole life, only because I've always been afraid of people coming to like take me away and do all these things. But this kiddo has become an active, resilient kind of person, right? So for months she's been like, we need to stock up. I'm going to start growing food. You know, we need to get more solar panels, and you know, like she's really on it. But this morning we sat and made the list because I read the article, like we've got like 2 weeks in these other countries before they're gonna kind of grind kind of pandemic style and not be able to produce and then move goods, right? And I saw the list of like things that might be really hard to come by. So I made a list this morning, like at 6 a.m, you know, okay, like this is it. And we sat and talked about it because we're going to go tonight and we're going to like try to get some stuff. And she said, you know, we're going to be okay. You've got a lot of skills. You've taught me so much. We've lived in other countries where we didn't have toilets all the time and you don't get toilet paper all the time. And she's like, it's not that big a deal. But she's like, people around us aren't going to know how to do it.
Right.
And so, you know, that's the thing. Like we're going to have to be the teachers for our extended community at some point. And when nobody's able to, you know, slog anymore, like,
right. Yeah. Yeah. People are falling in. We got to pull them up. Yeah. Yeah. I think that whole the toilets issue is really interesting because it again kind of speaks to how we cover over all the things that we don't want to think about, right? We just we use some of the most pure water in the world to flush away our shit, and that we don't have to think about it, right? So we don't have to look at it, and you know, for many, many years, we just flushed it out into the nearest water source. That maybe has changed a little bit, but still, that whole sense that, you know, we don't want this in our house. You know, death is the same way. We don't want this dead body in our house. Let's get it out of here as fast as possible and as quietly as possible so the neighbors don't notice. You know, and so what do we lose? We lose so much from that. We lose so much connection. And as you're speaking to the sense that that we can actually start thinking about ways that, as you're talking about, Ana Luisa, how do we do this in our own home, and how do we do it with our people around us? How do we start to get connections with our neighbors and our friends and the people that, because when that all does fall down, when we do admit that it's dying or dead, when the waters come over our head,
I like that.
We're gonna be in a situation where the only one we're gonna be able to help is the person we can touch, you know, that's next to us, that's swimming with us, basically, and everything else is going to be outside of our control. It is already outside of our control, and you're right. You know, the midterms aren't going to change anything, and not going to change that. The collapse is happening. It has been happening since many years ago. Yeah, the hospicing modernity came out what is it, 10 years ago or 6 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, it's been a
And
bit. It's been a hot minute for sure.
yeah, and at that point they were saying this can't it's unsustainable and it's going to collapse. And what do we do about that? How do we face that? So accepting that, treating it as what it is, a death and a loss, and ritualizing it is a huge part of it. That I think I'd love to hear more ideas from y'all about what would that look like? What would recognizing this and then ritualizing the end of the end of the world as we know it.
It's the end of the world. That should be our song.
Yeah.
And I don't mind.
No, I don't mind. There's years and years ago, I believe that spirit has me interact or find little gems. And I was walking through the public library in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I was making a beeline for where I was going, but for some reason I stopped and I kind of like did this and I looked, and there was this Buddhist book that I have like 3 copies of because I like to get away, but it was about meditating at the end of life. I can't remember the title right now, but the whole practice was to imagine you're dying and you're dead, and then you're rotting, you're composting, and what remains. And the practice is to do it so many times. It's very also it's not it's Japanese. The what are the warriors? They used to do that.
Oh, the Shinto, I know what you're talking
samurai.
about. Yeah.
The samurai.
Yeah.
The samurai were to wake up every morning and consider what their death looks like. And then they would get up and go. And I really love that. I think that's a fabulous practice. And I think that the practice is about clearly seeing in your mind's eye a potential reality and getting just really comfortable with it. And what does it feel like if I don't have this country, if I don't have a home, if I don't have a flush toilet, and get really uncomfortable in the practice. And then as you move through it and everything just kind of dissolves and it's like, it's okay. People have been in this situation before and they're okay too. I mean, people have been in the most heinous situations and have lived.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you bring yourself back to, in this moment, we are safe. We have electrical, we have water, we have a safe home. How can I help to prepare others? Will you help by preparing yourself by being very calm, by being very judicious in the choices you make on a day-to-day as the world is dying, as our elements of our society are shifting and moving like, sand. I think that's a ritual that we could all practice, like not to be afraid. Well, be afraid, and then keep seeing through it and move through it. And it may take an hour, it might take days, it might take a couple months for you to finally be really okay with that. But I think it is it's a beautiful practice.
Yeah, that's a good individual ritual to begin. And could that be, maybe Sam, maybe you could speak to this because you have people around you. Could that be brought into a community of your peers? Do you think you could how would that look to bring that into a community of your peers?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is to have a dying party and you all come around and you lie around and die together.
I love it.
I mean, shit. Go do a die-in. If you're talking about doing an active thing,
protest.
And protest, because doing our own inner work is good. And if we can, engage in a wider way.
How about the creative arts too, right? Like that is very creative. Yeah. It's very like theater. But I think that this also calls for art making.
Yeah.
This calls for poetry and storytelling and sculpture making and installation art. I think that is one of the collective rituals we can do together.
Right.
Yeah.
Like create our way through.
Maybe you could tell us about the art you just did recently, because that was a very good example of exactly what you're saying, I believe.
My portal?
Yeah, your portal.
My portal. Yes, it was a little room that I built, and what I wanted people to do, it was in an art gallery. And so it was housed in a, very sterile environment, very clean and beautifully lit. But as you entered the portal, there were like native grasses and feathers and stones and soil. And you would look around. It was a painting of the arsenal. So there used to be two places here in Denver area where we had a lot of radioactive materials being produced. One of them is now a park. Well, it's a hiking park. I just read an article last week that you do go there at your own risk because it's still radioactive.
Oh my goodness.
Great.
Yeah, of course.
And I think the Rocky Mountain Arsenal is also radioactive because you actually can't get out of your car in some sets. But they have rewild bison there. And so there's like a herd of bison out there, but you can't get out of your car. I think it's because the bison are there, but they probably are all absorbing a lot of the radioactivity that's still in the soil. And I did it because it's pointing to reclamation, rewilding, and we're part of this, and we can go and bear witness both to the travesty that has been done up on the land and the travesty of isolating us from the land. Yeah. So that was my art piece.
Yeah,
it's like
a great,
dismantled
great
and all over my house now.
Well, that's another metaphor, I think. And actually, we're interviewing Saladin in an hour or so, and one of the conversations that I wanted to have with him is about a ritual he's done, which is exactly what we're talking about. Which he basically has people dig their own graves. And then they go through this whole ritual of letting go of different parts of being alive. And then they go sleep in the grave overnight. And so that's maybe, it's another example perhaps of how we begin to be in acceptance of that and use that as a metaphor. But it's also a way of recognizing for ourselves, that we're going to die and what that's going to look like. But if you can take that another step to this is what's happening to our culture right now, to our society, and how do we spend time in that conversation? How do we connect those metaphorical pieces, what of loss, different kinds of loss that happen when you die, to the loss that's happening in our world? Yeah, that sounds like a fun. I don't know. Fun might not be the right word, but a compelling time together. So,
yeah. As we're talking about all of these like death embodiment rituals, I feel around the edges of my awareness the difficulty of holding that when we try to expand ourselves into like a collective and an organismal consciousness, either as like a nation, a globe, and to feel the parts of us that are dying and the struggle of holding and accepting, like, okay, this sort of like white supremacist Western hegemonic world is dying. And the people who have benefited most from that are the most afraid and lashing out in denial of that death and trying as many desperate measures as possible to hold on to that power, and will go to any lengths to do that, including mass murder. And I struggle with accepting the casualties and martyrs of that mass murder as just like, oh, that's just a part of this dying process.
Right.
It feels like there's a
Yeah.
level of callousness that my heart struggles with. And I don't know what to do with that, and I don't necessarily have any advice for how to manage that. I just wanted to acknowledge that I experienced that, and I imagine a lot of other people are too. And ecology loss too, like all of the pieces, you know, cutting down all our forests, and they're, you know, like the rapid, you know, acceleration in this death time. And how do we grapple with and what do we do to like try and head it off? And like, is just grieving that certain aspects of the world are ending and ecology loss is ending without shutting down and just getting fatalistic about it.
Yeah. Well, it's either fatalistic or shutting down, or like a rage and like, you know, fight back, right? Like it's a choice that you've come to, and we have to figure out how we're gonna do it. Going back to your very deep sense of not appropriate deaths with the mass genocides and the murders of, you know, our loved ones around, you know, psychopomp work is very real, and I've done that before. And have you heard of psychopomp?
Explain it to me.
Psychopomps are, well, I think they started out by being the people who kind of took care of poltergeists.
Okay, yeah.
You know, when spirits get trapped in certain spaces. There's another gentleman I followed for years. During the pandemic, we did a lot of online ceremony and work around this, because he's like, when somebody dies in abject fear, their spirits are like, they don't want to go to the light. They're like, wait, this is not okay. What's going on? Or, you know, a murder. Or I did the work for a cousin who was killed in a motorcycle accident. And what you do is, it's like shamanic journeying, and you go and find the soul and you help them get across and you move them. And so he was doing that work for folks who died early on in the COVID pandemic, who died in very extreme, stressful, ugly kind of ways. And he's like, it is our work now to bear witness to how they went and support them as they need to go travel across to the other side. So there is, I believe, psychopomp work is something we can also do.
Yeah. And I think that whole sense of ritual, and we did a practice this weekend at a retreat I was at, where we were talking about forgiveness and asking for forgiveness. And one of the people said, you know, I want to just say how sorry I am to the planet. You know, because no matter, even though I live my life in as clean and health and aware a way as I possibly can, I am contributing to the death of the planet. And
I think about
so
that.
just holding that awareness, and, you know, having a chance to just be with people and say those words and weep, you know, that's part of that. And it's also what you're saying, Sam, about, you know, just, we don't just, the acceptance doesn't mean that we just gloss over the fact that this is happening. We have to, part of that acceptance is to take responsibility and to feel the pain of it, and to share that pain with our beloveds and with our friends and our communities. I think that's part of what we're talking about when we talk about ritual. It needs to be happening. So
so the maybe last piece that I want to talk about, I see our time is growing short. In synthesizing what we're talking about with ritual and creativity, I am reminded of something that I want to talk about very carefully here, as to not come across as recommending any particular course of action. But I am reminded about certain discussions and education teachings that I have encountered regarding key points in Haitian history, and how in the West we so often are taught of it taught about it as a material, political, violent social uprising. And it,
That's right.
that is the key part.
Yes.
But more and more, what I learn about it, or the stories that I encounter in my education and the spheres that I'm stepping into, is the ritual component of that transformative period, and how the spiritual leaders in those communities held rituals, very powerful ancestral connection rituals, to invoke the gods of justice, the deity forms, the spiritual, archetypal, or energetic forces that care for the oppressed, that care for the martyred, and all of the ancestors who have died under such conditions, who have died fighting against such conditions, and asking for their guidance in how to move forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And doing that in a collective space. And so I'm not recommending any particular course of action, but commune collectively. If you are a ritualist, if you have any, if you just want to try, be careful, because sometimes, ancestors are
benevolent
spicy.
Ancestors only, please. For
and
now.
What does benevolent mean too? Right?
Yeah.
Like the fiery heart and righteous fury can be a benevolence. But still be careful about how you're entering into conversation. And I think I'm getting self-conscious about this. So I'm gonna
all right, Sam.
end this thought train. Thank you.
Let's go.
No, I appreciate that. I think whatever way you can approach it, and I think it's also important to be careful. I've been to grief rituals that were totally out of hand, because nobody was paying attention. No, it was just all let it all go, and that can lead to psychological issues. So, yeah, be thoughtful about it. Be careful about it. Have people who are
guide you,
wise, and can guide, and be there as facilitators, and just I think we could all do better this way, and it'll help with the acceptance that we have now, and maybe also, as we've said, help with guiding us toward what do we do, how do we go forward. So may it be so.
May it be so.
All right, love you guys. Talk to you again soon.
Bye. Adios.
Conversations about the end of life.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Charles Heston, the composer of the original music you are listening to now.
And of course, thanks to you, our audience, and all of our amazing guests. Please come back next week for another great episode. Share this with your friends, family, and community. We hope you will subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. Each guest's additional information will be found in the podcast notes. And of course, if you have a good end-of-life story to share, please reach out. We are always eager to hear from you.